The Jason Cabinets Experience. I'm your host, Jason Cabinets. Guest today is Kevin Dominik Korte. Kevin, you ready to be great today?
I'm happy to be here.
Kevin is a technology executive, board member, and IT Innovation Growth Strategist. Kevin dedicates himself to inspiring people to take control of their time, data, and dreams in IT business and life. A German native, Kevin moved to Seattle in 2013 to take over the role of president of, is it Uninvention North America? Univention North America. As a startup investor, Kevin focuses on tech and fintech. Kevin, thanks for being here today. I really appreciate it.
Happy to be here.
Kevin, first, you moved from Germany in 2013. I was actually in Germany twice, when I was in the Army. First time was a town called Gilbert, up by Würzburg. I was single. Then I came back again when I was married to my wife, and we lived in Wiesbaden for 2.5 years. And just a great time. Of course, the beer is like top notch, right? You can't beat the beer over there. And the wine's pretty good too. And just the food. So what part of Germany are you from?
I'm from the very north. So closest biggest city is either Bremen, if you're on the German side, yes, or then anything Groningen, Amsterdam is nearly as close to it.
So you're really close to Amsterdam?
Yep.
How many trips do you go to Amsterdam? To go to the brownie store?
Not so much in the brownie stuff, but it's a beautiful city to visit anyways.
Yeah, it's a nice place. And so you came in 2013 for your business. Was that voluntary, or did the company say you're moving to Seattle?
No, my wife got a little job offer here, and then I said, okay, here's my business plan. Please take me over. And with how many did we have then? 25 people. You still could just approach the CEO with ideas. And it wasn't as formalized as now with 150 people.
Nice.
So
what was some of the culture shocks for you coming to America?
I think the big shocker was how close it is and how different it is at the same time. My favorite story is, everything's fine, which in Germany means everything's great, and which here means please leave me alone.
I know, right? So moving to the States, do you and your wife have any kids?
We got kids here.
Okay. So they're like Americanized German, so to speak.
They speak both languages, but there's things that feel more culturally home here.
Have you been to that town called Leavenworth, Washington?
I think everyone here has been there.
Yeah. I won't get your opinion on that. Like, we were in Germany all those years, right? We did all the German stuff, really liked it. My family really liked it. And we're like, let's go to Leavenworth. We're in Leavenworth, like, man, this is some crap, right? It's like, this is a poor imitation of best, right? The beer doesn't taste the same, food doesn't taste the same. It's like, it's pretty and all, but so I want to get your opinion as an actual German citizen, what you thought about that.
It's kind of like Disneyland, really.
Yeah,
you
right.
Go there to see the architecture, to see them play the very stereotypical songs, and you don't go there to have the authentic experience.
Yeah, you're very right. It is the stereotypical songs, yeah, and nothing is authentic, yeah. That's a good tourist place,
It's, at least to see it once, it's fun. Mm-hmm. And
if you can't get to Germany, it's not a bad, knockoff. You can't make it to Germany.
If you can do it for just 1 day or 2, yes, then it's definitely a good idea. If you do it longer at some point, at least for me, it gets to me at some point.
Yeah. Have you and your family been able to find any actual authentic German restaurants or German beer here in this area?
A beer you get nicely, especially craft beers by immigrants, and they are, Reinheitsgebot, and they write that then on there. Yeah, no high fructose corn syrup, and that should be in beer anyways.
Yeah, I remember I try to tell people like what's it called, man? Oktoberfest, right? And they're like, there's no way it's like that. Like, dude, you have no idea how great Oktoberfest is, right? Down in Munich. I try to tell them that, sometimes I don't think they believe me, right? How big it is and how much beer and what a great time you have there.
The more interesting thing is not so much the Munich one. I think that's very commercialized, very much touristy. I think if you go then really anywhere in Germany, you have what's called Erntedankfest, which is like Oktoberfest, and in the small villages, which really celebrates the harvest.
Yeah.
And then there you have some the local beer and the local food and kind of the high school graduate band.
I remember when I was in Germany the first time, I was maybe 19, 20 years old. Still to this day, the best beer I've ever had. Went to this little like a field trip, right? We went to visit this monastery that made beer, and they've been making beer since year 200, something like that. All the monks stay on there, make beer. and the mugs were like this big, and like, man, it was so good. Like, so to this day, that's the best beer I ever had. Some beer made by monks.
Yep.
That wasn't even close.
Plus, you then have, of course, the rivalry. You can't go over there, drink their beer.
Exactly. So here's a question for you. So, like most people know, in Germany, there's pretty much no speed limit, right? I mean, I tell people, you could be on Autobahn going 100 miles an hour, and 3 cars will like blink the lights, and like you better move your ass over if you can get run over, right? How difficult was it to go from like pretty much no speed limit to like all crazy, insane slow speed limits? How hard that could take for you to get used to?
I think the speed limits weren't really the problem. I think the big difference is driving everywhere and that there's no public transit, or really a trip from here to Portland or here to Vancouver, BC. In Germany, you would probably take the train, and here you either take the car or fly. I think that's a bigger difference than the speed limit because, to be honest, you have traffic jams as well. So it's not that much of a difference for the speed limits.
Yeah, that's a great point. Like Seattle likes to brag that we have this real good public transportation system, but it's like nothing compared to Germany. Like Germany is so easy. That's for everywhere in the world. Like I was in South Korea or Germany, you just, even if you can't read the language, it's pretty easy to figure out how to go from, Wiesbaden to Frankfurt or, Paris or where the case would be, right? Here, not so much.
Yeah, plus the number of trips you can do here. I mean, I think every German city in the same size as Seattle, if you look at the transit going between 1 a.m. and 4 a.m., you would have more transit than what goes here during rush hour.
Yes, yeah. I forgot about that. That's a good point. It is very reliable over there. So next, let's talk about gardening. What got you interested in gardening?
Just more kind of the relaxing thing, and you can kill something without having to worry about someone complaining about it. And the other thing, of course, doing it with my kids, having like the activity. I think what really got us started was our now 7-year-old kind of the plant home was like, yeah, we have to plant it somewhere, like in the townhouse with just a lawn about the size of a rug. And yeah, let's build a raised bed. And then we moved out to between Redmond and Duval, got like an acre or so of land. And I'm like, yeah, there's dirt there where they just digged out the old septic tank, and let's build a garden there. And that kind of gets you falling into it.
Is there any certain like vegetables or fruits you grow, or just whatever the kids want you to grow with them?
Me, I would love to do different things, but in the end, it's mostly tomatoes because that's then the kids like whoop, 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 and from the shrub directly into the mouth.
Nice. And how long have you been doing this gardening thing? Is it a brand new thing or?
6 years now.
6 years, okay.
But it takes time to develop.
Yeah,
like any skill.
You gotta have patience, no doubt about that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so you did it just so you could have something to do with the kids, or?
Yeah, activity with the kids, getting out, making use of the space we have. And from there it just grew. And kind of the fun thing, you harvest something and then you eat it directly.
Yeah.
Then you get like.
And there's any worry about all the pesticides from people putting on it and where it came from and all that kind of mess.
You don't have to worry about that. And especially for certain greens, it's complete different taste. So it's like right out of the garden on the plate.
Yes. So next, let's go to model trains. So you got a lot of very different and hobbies, so to speak, which I think is good, right? So model trains, that's something else you started when you came to the States. That's something you were doing since you were a kid.
That's something I've been doing as a kid. I think I first started with my dad's train set, and then at, I think 9, I got my own one. And then from there, it's just organically growing. And then you get like into these stereotypes, like the train going around the Christmas tree, and that gets then the kids interested. And suddenly you go like from, okay, that's a very simulation of how German railways work to, okay, there's a dragon on the line. And keep on doing these interesting things with it.
So does your wife let you have a room in the house, or is it that's what your model train set up? You go in to play the trains whenever you want to, or your wife's like, no, you only do this during Christmas time?
It's like in segments, so we can put it up in the family room and then quickly get it out of the way if we want to do something else. But with 2 kids around, making a whole room for it is problematic because with a 4-year-old, there's like,
yeah,
I'm grabbing it, and something which is then 2 inches in size.
Yeah,
it's not good for unsupervised play yet.
Yeah. So how many model trains do you have?
I honestly don't know.
So that many?
That's
Like over 10?
around 25, 30,
25? Okay.
something.
And like, what's the average size of them? Like, how many cars are each train? I mean, 10 cars, 15 cars? Just best guess.
I think my best guess would be like 3 cars per each.
Okay, that's not bad.
Yeah, it's just people have some the idea. Okay, we found the engines on the in the attic or in the basement. Here's the engine, and then the cars look so rusty. I threw them away, and I'm like, oh, why do you do that?
So, are you on a train? Like, I know some people on trains they have the story for each train. Like they have the little conductor. They'll have the background story of the conductor. Like the conductor came from Dallas, Texas. He came. Are you that detailed? Or you just like do the trains? Not that you're not that bad. Okay.
No, I'm more into getting the landscaping nice and have them drive nicely through the landscaping than any of the. Okay, that's the train from Dallas. He needs to bring cattle to Wyoming for slaughtering, and if it's late because there's some other train. Okay. Yeah, so that's not the type of thing, and I guess my kids will also be like, "Why is it so boring?"
That's a great point. Yeah. And then you also do sailing. Is that like you do competitive sailing, like the America's Cup stuff, that high level, or you just do it for fun?
Just for fun. Okay. More like the trip sailing, how others do camping. Okay. This kind of.
And is it like, I know a lot of people do sailing like down, like from here down to California, or like all these nice sailing trips. How much do you do?
Not so much right now because kids who can't swim or not really into that yet.
When was the last time you were able to go sailing?
I think the last biggest trip was just before we came here.
Okay, so back in Germany?
Yeah, back in Germany. The biggest trip actually was Miami to Italy.
So you sailed from Miami to Italy?
Yeah.
Oh shit!
Went on a crew which took the ship over for I think winter or summer. I think.
How many people were on the crew?
We were 4 people on the crew.
Man, like that's insane. Like I've heard people like doing all around the world. I can imagine like. Of course, I'm sure you have like all the tech stuff, GPS stuff. I mean, safety stuff, but still, the Atlantic Ocean is pretty freaking big.
Oh, it's my retirement dream to go sailing around the world. Once the kids are in college?
So. Is that your wife's retirement dream?
I told her that that's our retirement dream. So let's see.
Man, so what are some of the dangers? I mean, you had to sail from Miami to Italy. I'm guessing like all the big ships are at. Like, do you know like all like the whales and like pods or stuff like that, or
weather?
Weather's the biggest thing.
Hasn't changed in hundreds of years. Weather is still the big problem. Storms, especially.
Okay, and like I'm guessing there's no TV station you dial in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean to see, hey, where the storm's coming from the next 20 miles, right?
Ham radio.
Ham radio. Okay, I forgot about ham radio. That's pretty reliable still, isn't it?
It's still reliable. It's still what they use, and well, now you can get it via satellite as well. But the old school tech, maps, and so it's still on board.
So when you were sailing from Miami to Italy, like how many boats did you pass? Like whether they were big cruise ships or other ships, or were you mostly by yourself most of the time?
Most of the time there was our ship, and then until we reached like the Strait of Gibraltar, nothing around it.
Man, so I'm guessing these 3 people, so it's 4 including you, right?
Yeah, 4 including me.
So I'm guessing like these are people you knew. I can't imagine doing a thing like that with like complete strangers.
No. So I hired onto a crew and have not met them beforehand.
Oh man, like how did that work? Like, of course you had no choice to get along, I guess.
It was definitely interesting. Yeah, I don't have a choice to get along, and thankfully they were all more experienced than me, so they're kind of hardened up and probably also more in this sense of yeah.
So how do you deal with all like the silence and quietness, like like just being out there in the middle of nowhere, so to speak?
The same way people deal with Arctic expeditions or things like that. Mm-hmm. They just find something to do. Yeah. And on a boat, there's always something you can repair. Or in the worst case, you read the books that are on board.
So before you took a trip, how experienced of a sailor person were you?
I've done trips with my family on that.
So you're pretty experienced, like
at least knew what the lines do and how to sail. I think the big issue was learning the language, because words are different in English, which we use to communicate, versus German or Dutch boats, which I've sailed on before.
Do you have a sailboat now?
No. Not so much for not wanting it, but not so much for wanting to take care of it. So
yeah, I can imagine. Yeah. And if you have a sailboat, what would you like sail in the Puget Sound or Lake Washington? Like,
Yep. Yeah. I mean, you can rent the small
yeah,
ones around here nicely to stay on, yeah, Lake Union or Lake Washington.
yeah. So you have any itch to start sailing anytime soon? Or are you gonna wait for a while?
Oh, maybe this year.
Yeah.
As both the kids can swim now, can take them out on one of the smaller boats here on the lakes and then
That's good.
see how they fare with falling into the water when
Yeah,
you turn the boat over.
I know, right? Man, that's pretty interesting. You sail from Miami, Italy. That's insane. And so you just like applied to go on a boat, and they took you. So
Yep.
so you're like, were you like a what's it called? Like a deckhand or something, or like?
Yeah, the rank would have been a deckhand.
Okay,
So unlicensed.
okay. And what year did you do this?
2008.
Okay, so you were like
college.
pretty successful. Like, man, that's yeah. I might need to do that. I did to my bucket list. So last question about sailing, like, were you getting seasick a lot?
I've not been much seasick, but might also be depending on the boat, because generally on catamarans, which have like two pieces of in the water, you don't get as seasick.
Yeah.
So thankfully that went away or past me.
Yeah, I used to go deep sea fish out of Westport, Washington, like every year. I think I've gone 7 times, maybe 6 times, right? I used to go with my son, different friends. The first 3 times I went, like nothing. I would drink, have a good time, no seasick. The last 3 times, man, I was seasick as a dog every time. So it was the last time I said I'm never going again.
Well, it's generally coastal or shelf waters, which have like the small waves which you don't see, or the really big storms. And thankfully, neither of them are what I've experienced mostly. So I would wager I'm getting seasick in those conditions as well.
Yeah, that's true. That's a great point. So next, let's talk about you being a dad. That's something you're very proud of and take a lot of pride in. Talk about like what it means to be a dad and what kind of role model you want to be for your children.
First of all, it's a lot of work. I think that's the thing which people like to forget, that how much work it is and how much you have to do. But for the role model, I think the big thing is to get them to make their own decisions, which that's something I'm proud of, that I had the option to choose what I want to do, where I want to go, and had the support on choosing my own way and not be the dad who says, okay, you have to be the lawyer, you have to get into Harvard Law School. But also on this flip side, get someone who's responsible and who actually makes a decision, not says, okay, I'm waiting till my thing falls onto me.
Yes.
Is that mine?
Okay, no worries.
Sorry.
Yeah, no worries. And how old are your kids again?
7 and just 4.
Oh man, like from my experience, that's the perfect age for kids, right? Because like they're kind of independent, they're doing stuff their own. They still kind of look up to you, right? Like, no, dad's still the superhero, right? So you have the kids at perfect age right now, I think.
Dad is the superhero that can solve problems, but also still, okay, I'm better not make him angry.
Yeah. Well, enjoy what you can, because before you know, it's like dad doesn't know what he's talking about. Like, who's this guy? He's so old fashioned. He doesn't know anything about anything.
It's a great thing that we have a neighborhood with a pretty mix. So there at pickup, you can sometimes see, don't give me a hug. There's my friends are there.
Exactly. Here's a question for you. How I put this question. So a lot of parents, I think, like you said, they think I'm a successful parent if my kids go to Harvard, or my kid's a lawyer, or my kid does something else. From your point of view, what would you make a successful dad once your kids are grown up?
I think, them making their own decisions, them being successful in the way they define it. And if my kids say, okay, I'm successful by being a tree climber and making posters about the environment, then sure. I think, having them choose what they want to do, having them decide what they want to do, and having them make the decisions, that's how I would define success. So much more they do what they want to do and they have to follow through to actually do it.
Yeah, that's one thing I struggle with. Like all my kids, like they're pretty self-independent, like their 20s, one's in their 30s. They don't decisions. And like sometimes, man, like you don't even know more, right? Can you ask them how once in the balloon one, right? I got it right. So that's one thing I do struggle with, right? Like, like man, I raised them too independent. Like, man, you don't need me at all. Like, shit, but it is what it is.
I don't know whether that's a bad thing or a good
It's a
thing.
good thing. I mean, it's just,
Yeah, it's
but as a dad, you always want to want your kids to need you. I think, no matter what the age is.
you want them to need you, and
But then
you
again,
have to learn to let go.
yeah. But then again, those are asking for your help every single day. Like, damn, like what's going on here, right?
Might also be the difference. I don't know whether you have sons or daughters.
I have 2 daughters and 1 son.
Might be the difference because daughters are still the little princess, no
Yeah.
matter how we get into all the questions about equality.
That's very true. So next, talk about what you do as far as your startup investments.
It's the classical people have great ideas, have the follow through to do it, and just need the money to do it. And then they come with, okay, I need $20,000, $30,000 to get started. And that's normally where I jump in.
And you invest only in the Seattle area, or you invest back in Germany? Like, where's your
general US?
US?
So
Okay.
Seattle is, of course, a strong point. Bay Area. Funnily enough, Florida as well.
Yeah. Miami is like a happening place right now.
Yes. Well, they have all the spaces available after all the crypto bankruptcies. So.
Oh yeah. So but are you like a part of an angel syndicate? You invest in your own? Belong to a VC? Like, how do you do your investments?
Yes, either via the family office or via angel syndicates.
Okay. And do you have like any? So I know you invested mainly in fintech or tech. Is there any specific industry? Like, any more details you can give us, or is just based on the idea and the people?
It's generally, stuff that I understand first of all, but then it's and it's at early stage. It's very much the people, the founding team, the 3-4 executives who are in the team, which make them the make or break on the startup.
So this might be a request, but like, what would suppose somebody invested with you, they pitching you whatever, what would that person need to do for you to say, there's no way I'd invest in this team? Like, no way in hell I give this people money. What are mistakes you see people do when they pitch you?
I think the biggest mistake is, okay, we built it and then customers will come. That's one of the big ones. Or we haven't built it, we just have the bright idea. Give us money to build the first prototype. I think that are the 2 ones where, okay, no one's going to buy it without marketing and without sales, and no, without a prototype, especially in the tech industry, you're not getting any money.
Yeah, I think a lot of startup founders struggle with that. Like, a lot of founders, like, they'll build a great product, no marketing, or the vice versa. They have all this great marketing, no product, right? And it's like hard to sync together, right?
It's very hard, yes. And it's also one of the reasons, if you look at these old established companies who you use as examples, whether it's Walt Disney or the Wright brothers, you normally have brothers or people who meet very early in high school who started, because on the one hand, they have the trust of knowing each other for a long time, but you also then have one person who does like the vision, the marketing, the sales, and the other one who really builds the company and who doesn't want to be in the spotlight. So that's one of the things which normally, if you have 2 people doing it, it's much easier to do it, because there's just so much of a difference between the marketing guy who goes like, yes, everything is great, and the more technical, more operations guy who goes, okay, we have to do this before we really get something to show.
Yeah. And so for startups, what's your advice for them? Like, they have to do 20,000 things. I know it kills me. Like, I have my own startup. Some of the market say, hey, Jason, you got to focus on marketing. Then the salesperson, no focus on sales, no focus on this, right? And like, dude, like, everything can be number one priority, right? So what's your recommendation on that?
I think one of the recommendations is focus on getting a great team, because no matter how good you are at sales and marketing, at some point you're just one person, and the day doesn't get any longer the longer you're in the business. The other thing is really try put limits on, okay, if I don't reach that goal by this point and the next goal by that point, I'm out of here. I'm not burning any more money, or I'm not continuing down that path. Because that's the other thing. There's quite a number of startups where you say, okay, you really should have gone out a year ago, or try to sell what's there in your company a year ago. And the other thing is really try to know yourself and be honest with yourself. I think one of the first startups I had was was not in fintech and tech, but in renewable straws. And in the end, the guy said, no, I can't handle it. He sold his patents to one of the big companies and was like, okay, I'm out of here. And everyone was like, okay, we got a good profit. Probably we could have gotten more if he'd driven it to an IPO, but in all likelihood, that guy wouldn't have made it till there. So we would have not gotten anything. So that kind of honesty with yourself to say, okay, it's not going anywhere. That's something which, especially in the early stages, people are like looking for and trying to see in startup investors.
Yeah, that's a great point. So I'm gonna ask you this, like, people always say, you're an entrepreneur, like, don't give up, keep on going, just, keep the faith, it's going to happen for you. But like that guy decided it was time to shut it down, right? When should a startup founder decide to shut it down? Like, like what's called a zombie startup, or like when should a person like have a red flag, so to speak?
I think the biggest red flag is burnout. Like in any job, if you realize you can't handle it, if you realize you don't have any life, and you realize it's not getting better, that's the bigger red flag, I would say. Because zombie startups, okay, people are leaving, you see that it's going to an end. And if you don't see it as the entrepreneur, at least your next round of investments to get money in will say, okay, you're a zombie startup. I looked at your books. I'm not giving you anything for this round, for Series A. And that way, for these, there is an out. The problem is more the kind of the semi-successful startups who are not really growing enough to scale up, but who are too successful to fail.
Yeah, basically they're like a lifestyle business, and killing people say lifestyle business like it's a bad thing, right? I mean, you can make a good living and have a nice life on a lifestyle business, but it's not the same as a VC business, of course.
Yes, I mean that can be then an exit. You say, okay, I'm giving dividends to my current investors and keep it as a lifestyle business, as a small business, and that might not be what your investors will look for initially, but it's definitely better than trying to scale and then realize, boom, I was the wrong person, or the wrong person at the wrong time, and this didn't scale as I wanted it because I didn't know, or because I didn't realize that the day is over at midnight.
Yeah, it drives me crazy. Like so many people, like, I'm gonna start a business because I don't want a boss. Well, now you have like so many more bosses, right? The vendors, your customers, your investors, or people like, man, I'm gonna start my own company so I don't have to work 40 hours a week. No, you will never work 40 hours a week again in your life.
I think employees and the IRS are the two biggest bosses you can always have, and they're also the worst bosses if you realize I'm running out of money, or
yes,
I'm getting issues there.
So how do you get your deal flow? Do you like, is this based on referrals, or like how do you get your deal flow?
Yeah, it's normally you get a referral and then you talk to the people, you get them to show you their pitch deck and their books, and you see, okay, did they work a bit on the pitch deck and the book? And then kind of on the early startup, it's both the pitch deck and the book are there to see, okay, he thought about possibilities, he thought about, but it's not that, okay, the books look good, you see like the numbers add up, but it's more kind of the due diligence on the founder, which gets through the documents. And then it's a lot of talking to them and discussing it with them.
So when you do invest in someone, like how many touches do you have with that startup founder? Like 10 times, 15 times? Like what's the average number before you feel comfortable investing in someone?
I think an average number would be around 5, but
5, okay.
there are also some which have just 2 touch points and some which go on and on for months, just because they're often then the first time founders, and you're like, okay, have you thought about that? Have you thought about that? And you then see they're invested in it, both to their means financially and emotionally, but it's also then the ones who are not really at the maturity. So someone right out of college or still in college, there you need, okay, here's a bit of more due diligence we need to do. Here's something you need to look up whether that doesn't make more sense to do. So then at some point it goes in more into the coaching and the board membership for startups.
Yeah. And do you ever invest like just by yourself, or do you always invest with other people?
Oh, thankfully they're like the smaller regulation, like CF or so, where you can go just online invest in.
Okay.
Which is, it's kind of fun to do them in the small, like $1,000 or $2,000 and just see.
Like
okay,
an equity, like talking about like an equity crowdfunding campaign, something like
yeah,
that.
it's kind of like Kickstarter just for
Okay.
investment.
I think that's like WeFunder, Republic.
Yeah, WeFunder, Start
Okay.
Engine, I think the two big ones.
Yeah.
And that's kind of interesting to invest in technologies where you don't want to be so deep involved in.
I mean, I'm pretty sure fintech's like your sweet spot, but is any other tech out there that excites you that you want to invest in?
B2B, quantum technology, that are the two. B2B because I'm in that space from an executive point of view. So as long as I don't collide with what I'm doing in my day job, I normally know what's going on there. And then quantum because before being a computer science guy, I started in physics, and that was always more like the Star Trek realm, which is a lot more technical than what they.
Yeah, I don't think the average American realizes like how much tech is out there, right? I mean, it's insane.
I mean, I guess if I talk to someone who's a biologist, I wouldn't recognize what he's talking about either.
Yeah, that's true.
So it's just that a lot of tech is either because we have it in our hands as a phone, or because sci-fi likes to show, the warp core.
Yeah, warp drive, whatever. Yeah. So next, you're on the board of advisors for a company called a fintech startup called Moxie. Can you talk about first, like what did they do to convince you to come on the board of advisors, and what do you do for them?
I think convincing them to get onto the board of advisors was, I think, that 4 calls with me and the team, because in the startup world, is you're normally both the board member and one of the investors. And board of advisors, you normally have a relatively larger group who then gives advice to things, and being B2B tech, technology scaling, emerging technologies, that's my focus, of course, but also the sales side. Someone who's been in sales and done sales for 10 years. It's always interesting to do brainstorming with other guys who do sales.
Why do you think a lot of entrepreneurs, like, I won't say they're scared of doing sales, but like, like always try to put it off, or like they're trying to hire someone, and of course, people out there will say, if you have to do sales as a founder, and you shouldn't like hire it off until you like have the first $10,000. All these things you say, right? Do sales yourself, but like most people, including myself, like, man, like just don't want to pick the phone and cold call people, right? Like, what's your advice to like overcoming that? Of course, people say just pick up the phone, but trust me, it's not that freaking easy, right?
Honestly, I was so scared picking up the phone, and I came over here and started doing sales. So I really put it off until our group CEO came over and like, we either need to see results or it's over. So I think being scared of it being over helps. And the other thing is getting that one success, which is normally helpful. And my personal story is I got that one success in, then we scheduled the follow-up call, and the first question was, okay, who were you again? Which was like, okay, the guy who I thought we had a good connection, who invited me in for an hour-long meeting, doesn't remember me. So what's the likelihood of anyone who's not talking at all to me remembering me tomorrow? And I think that's a big thing. People won't remember you, even if you have success with them, unless you put them in the forefront. So anyone who says, no, we don't need your services, you're gone by 5 minutes later, because the next fire is there.
Exactly, yeah. And can you tell a little bit about the mental toughness you need to be a salesperson?
You need different toughs, and you have different salespeople. So there's the stereotypical used car dealer, of course, who's talking to someone who can bridge the awkwardness, and that takes really some skill to actually keep talking, keep someone engaged. Then, of course, you have the person who can shut up and ask a question, which that's what I find when hiring salespeople is what most people struggle with. It's once you're in the groove, to keep talking is easy. because you don't have to have the awkwardness of someone thinking and just giving them time to think. And of course, the last toughness is you just have to live with some people saying no.
Yeah.
And not taking it personally and just acknowledging, okay, they don't remember me. So I can really cold call them again tomorrow and they don't.
That's actually a great tip. Like, yeah, maybe not tomorrow, but maybe like 2 weeks later, call them again because I can remember you probably.
Yeah, if you're really scared, that's one of the mentors I had, that just call one person and I think a week later call them again, and you'll notice he won't say, oh, wait, did you call me? They will be like, no, we don't need you.
Yeah. Can you talk about the points of public speaking?
We're doing it here.
Yeah.
It's very similar to the sales thing. It's that scared moment of standing in front of people and assuming everyone hates you and everyone knows that you're talking bullshit. That's I think that's the big thing which so many people fear. So it's not the mechanics of, oh, do I make a small gesture or a big one? It's really the fear of having to speak, the fear of rejection, the fear of, really, in our monkey Stone Age brains, the fear of being excluded from the group because they think, oh, that's something we really shouldn't have been hearing from you, or that's so wrong. When in truth, if you get anyone to listen to you actively, that's already a success. And if people are like, oh, did you think of that? That might be wrong. Most people are like, okay, we want to talk about it, not we want to put you in and embarrass you. But it's one of the things which I think comes with practice and getting over fear.
Yeah.
It's the same thing, people jumping out of perfectly functioning airplanes just to get that feeling of fear.
Yeah, but I know most people would pick jumping an airplane versus public speaking, right?
I mean, statistics is always great that more people fear public speaking than fear death.
Yeah,
so I would assume people will rather jump out of an airplane than stand on a stage.
Yeah, I mean, that's like I tell people all the time, especially young people, learn the skill, learn to be able to get in front of people and talk, right? Because if you do that, you can defend your position, you can convince people to do what you want them to do, right? You just have such an advantage, you're able to get up in front of speak.
It's both the public speaking and also the small speaking. So being at a cocktail party or after work dinner and being able to just say the 3-4 sentences to really get the conversation starting.
Yeah, so like I'm pretty decent like public speaking. I suck at small talk. Like networking, like if I meet someone at a networking event, man, I struggle with that big time.
Yeah, it's not normally everyone struggles and everyone is sitting in there and waiting for anyone in the room to start it. And that's, I think, being the first one, getting your piece out. But on the other hand, what I learned, it's not so different from public speaking. You just, if you know that there are 2-3 people and you can check their LinkedIn bio, you know, okay, we could talk about public speaking here, or you can ask me like you did about the model train or the gardening. And the same works with all the small talk as well. As long as you know 1 or 2 people, you can get the conversation going. And as soon as there's a flow in the room, you'll have people talking to each other. It's just the kind of the awkward first minute where no one wants to do it.
Yeah, and are you still involved with Toastmasters?
Yes,
okay.
I'm still.
Are you like one of the officers for the chapter or something like that, or?
Yeah, I have been. Thankfully, this year I'm not. So it was definitely an interesting time to be it, but it's also, they have like length of term restrictions, so you have to either move up or move out or take a break. And doing it during the pandemic, during a time where people don't come together to do public speaking, but learn to do it on Zoom, it had its own challenges. And I don't know whether if I had done another year as officer, especially in the higher district level where you have like multiple clubs, that was a lot of work to get them, to keep people engaged, to keep people going, to keep people seeing how it's relevant now that they're on Zoom and not just in front of, on the big stages where you have the presentations.
And Toastmasters is a nonprofit, right?
It's a nonprofit, yeah.
So what did you personally get out of being so involved with Toastmasters?
I think it's the leadership opportunity. And the leadership feedback was one of the big things, especially in the last 2 years. Because let's be honest, if you're a boss of someone, getting feedback is really hard, because they're like, okay, if I give him bad feedback, he might fire me. If I give him too good feedback, he might think I'm just trying to get into him. And so I think in that sense, it really helped me to understand, okay, where are my shortcomings in leadership, where I have to work on, and what I have to do. And then, of course, before that, getting the confidence to actually stand up and not be the guy who's awake the whole night before giving a talk, which was the case when I presented my bachelor's thesis. I was like, I didn't sleep, and then put concealer under the eyes to not have the big rings under there.
One thing I always struggle with as far like, public speaking, like I'm okay, like getting in front of people and talking right. Of course, I'm nervous and practice, but I don't do good at a close. We had a meeting at a company, right? And there's 10 people around the table. Each one has to say something, right? If I'm the last one, oh my God, like I struggle with that, right? I want to be the first one to talk and be over with, right? I don't want to wait to the last one in case I hear everyone talk, and then all these thoughts go in my mind. I always struggle with that.
I actually find it a lot easier the other way around, being the last one to talk, because especially in a company meeting, you can go back to what people said, but that requires, of course, listening and then taking yourself a minute to, okay, it's your turn. The 30-second silence where you think about what's happening, which I find a lot easier nowadays, to just give yourself the permissions to think, to formulate your thought, and then engage everyone else.
Yeah. I think another reason I was like that, because I guess my thought process was, there's 10 people, I'm the first one to talk. By the time everyone's finished talking, they'll forget all my mess ups, right? But from the last one talking and I mess up, everyone remember my last mess ups, Because I know it's in a good, positive way to think, but.
Learn to be self-deprecating humor is, I think, the biggest thing. Comedy stages.
Yeah.
That's I think one of the founders I worked with told me, yeah, I learned to hold team meetings by doing stand-up comedy for like 3 evenings, that I run out of topics to talk about. Because if you're on stairs, if you see stand-up comedy, it's normally like, yeah, I'm making fun of myself, I'm making fun of politics, I'm making fun of something which I really shouldn't talk about. Yeah. And that kind of gets away from that kind of fear of saying something which is stupid.
And the fact is, everyone says stupid stuff all the time. So
yeah, as long as you can laugh about it, and that's the thing. The only thing, as long as you laugh about it, everyone is happy that you said something, and that someone said to close it out, or maybe to summarize it.
Yes. How many times have you and your family gone back to Germany?
We used to do it every other year, and then COVID hit. We had the trip planned and everything booked, and like, nope, you can't go. So we are happy to go this summer again and see how it goes with the kids speaking German in person and not over Skype. And
how often has you or your wife's family been able to come over to visit you, y'all?
So my parents come pretty regularly. Well, that's the easy thing when you're retired and for Germany, don't need a visa to come here. My wife's actually from Moldova, so her parents didn't have the chance yet to come over here. So it's us visiting normally.
Okay. So next, let's talk about networking. So I think a lot of people in general, startup founders, but case would be, they'll either network too much, or they'll focus on the product too much. Can you talk about the points like, like having a good balance of building your company, networking, all those kind of things?
I think I haven't seen someone who's networking too much. It's either, if you think people are networking too much, it's then that they're actually not networking. They're just putting themselves out and trying to get the spotlight at a networking event, which is normally the thing people seem to be very appreciative of in the first thing, but which really doesn't make you memorable. Because the networking events, it's really an event where you want to be in and go out where everyone says, oh, we all took something out of. Versus if you sit in a presentation, you're normally going there with an agenda to, okay, I will learn about that, or I skip the presentation. So that's, I think, the too much networking is more that people don't really network. They just put themselves out and try to be the presenter. Otherwise, I think the thing is that networking events happens normally in the evening or late afternoon, so after 4, which kind of gives you the chance to, and my schedule is it to do the hard creative work before breakfast, and the morning do the sales, do sports, and then afternoon for some either technical work or and then go networking in the evening. That way, it's almost like a school schedule, like you have in high school, and you know what's coming next.
I know one thing, like a lot of people say they're networking, but every time you see them somewhere, they're talking to the same 2 or 3 people, not meeting any new, like, so I'm like, are you really networking? Or you just like use this as a way to hang out with your friends, right? I don't think a lot of people actually go network, right? Like when I network, my goal is to meet 3 new people. Sometimes I do it, sometimes I don't, but I always see the same people talk to the same people.
I think for me, the more the point is to introduce 3 new people to each other.
Oh, that's a great point. That's a great point.
Because instead of meeting new people, that way you provide a direct value to everybody.
Value. That's a great point. I like that.
Plus, it doesn't put you on the spotlight. So if you're like me and struggle with, picking up the phone to make cold calls, struggle with, I don't want to really do networking, then you kind of can put it in your mind that, oh, it's actually not about me. I just want to make sure these 2 people meet each other.
Yeah, I like that a lot. What networking events do you go to on a regular basis?
I prefer like normally it's a kind of the cocktail party style. So 4 to 6 or 6 to 8. And you have like 15, 20 people in the room and try to meet them. So that's the ones I prefer. Of course, the big conferences are there, but I find it hard to meet just new people. So for a big conference, you really need to go with an agenda and know, okay, that's the party I want to go. I need to meet that person and kind of have the engagement sheet in front of you. That's his picture. He likes to talk about that. He does that for work. Kind of like your prep for this talk, probably.
Yeah.
To really get to know that person before he goes off to have his engagement sheets ready.
Yes. So what's your take on this? And you kind of already answered the question, right? I know like there's some founders out there, they're like, stealth mode, building stuff on their own, no one knows what they're building. The other people like build, it was called building a product, right? They're pitching, they're on social media, they're talking about what they're doing. Like, you think one has an advantage over another one, or one has the pros and cons to each one?
It really depends on where you are. So stealth mode has the advantage if you're really, it's very pre-revenue where you build your product, or if you have a physical product, make like the prototype to get funding of. Once you have your prototype ready, you really need to push it out. You need to get the first customers. You need to make sure, okay, it's not just a great idea, but it's something where people want to spend money on, which it's often harder than it seems like. Because if you just do like focus groups, everyone will like, oh yeah, that makes so much life easier, but it's not really.
Of course I'll buy it for this amount of money,
Yeah. Oh wait, you have a credit card swiper right there. Let me think about it and talk to my wife about it.
Or I'll buy it, but can you add this feature and this feature and this feature?
Yeah.
And before you know it, your product is totally different from what you wanted to build. Yeah. So you're trying to please one customer.
Yeah, and then you need to pitch enough and be ready to say, okay, this didn't work out. Thank you for your 10 minutes. I'm going to the next guy.
So, all the stuff with the economy right now, are we in a recession or not in a recession? Silicon Valley Bank failing, all the stuff going on. Of course you can't predict the future, but looking at your crystal ball, what do you see as the state of a VC or angel investing for founders in the rest of 2023?
I think for angel investors, there will be still great companies at great price points out there. But as in any recession, there will be also a lot of stuff which has to be sorted out. Because people think, okay, I have this great idea. I can build a startup. I can get 4 or 5 million in venture capital right off the bat to build my prototype. And it's, yes, 2020, you could get that if you knew the right people. But we're, I think, more back in a normal mode where, if you show me you have 1 customer, I might invest in a seed round. And not if you have a great idea and want $1 million to build it. then it really needs to be something patentable, which you can hold in the hand, not just technology.
Yeah. So I follow a lot of VCs on Twitter because I have my own startup I'm trying to build. And one VC put on, I can't remember his name, but he put on there, hate to be the bearer of bad news for, entrepreneurs, but it's gonna be really, really hard to, raise money rest of 23. He said, like, if you have a seed round investment, you're trying to raise a seed round, you need A round metrics. Do you think it's gonna be that bad, or that guy's just exaggerating?
I think there's a problem that in the last couple of years, people kind of confused what the rounds are for.
Mm-hmm.
Versus the seed round, it's really for talking to investors, to making sure the team is the right team. The A round is much more focused on, do the numbers add up? Does the scaling prove that, does he have a proof that he can scale the business model? And versus if I take the data sheet for a seed round, it's there to, did the founder think about all the obvious things? And I'm less concerned of, okay, he took at 1.1, so one customer talks to 1.1 people versus one customer talks to 1.2 people, which is the Series A normally looks at. And I think we get back to the point where that gets split up. So people either invest in seed rounds and do the person-to-person work versus people who invest in Series A who do more the financial work and honestly invest the much higher numbers.
Yes. So were you investing, were you in Germany, or you started investing once you came to the States?
Only in the States, really.
Okay. So can you give me, from your point of view, some pros and cons of the Seattle tech scene, Seattle investment scene, from your point of view?
It's a very interesting scene in terms of that you have the combination of big tech companies, but also driven by our biggest company, Boeing, still a lot of the kind of really old school technology, like engineering parts. So you find that very interesting combination of sales guys coming from engineering, coming from Boeing, coming from all the military stuff. Then you have the tech guys who build the product underneath it, and have that very interesting combination, which I find a lot easier to deal with than Silicon Valley, where everyone comes kind of from a tech background, or not everyone, but a lot of people, because you have some people who have different ideas. And that's, I think, especially in the seed round, very valuable that people have different ideas. And we like to talk about diversity, but diversity doesn't matter if you have three guys who have a different color, but they all came from Stanford, did CS at Stanford, all worked at Google, and all went to the same private high school, and all grew up in the same neighborhood, because they all have the same kind of ideas in their head. And that makes it nice for a metric, but it's in the question, is that really what we look for?
Yes. So next, you also do some stuff with New Chip Accelerator. That's the one out of Austin, correct?
Yes. Yeah.
Now, New Chip, they're almost like, are they like a pay for play thing where you give them an amount of money and they pretty much guarantee you'll get investment?
They have some pay for play stuff, but most of it is not. So I think most of the founders are getting in there and doing the seminars, and then that gives them, the investors, the first right to the first pitch. They have pay for play stuff, both in the terms of, okay, here's some money, and in the terms of, here is some stock, which honestly, I don't know whether that's so much of a problem, because they normally then give you access to almost like the MBA people, who then can, okay, let's get you set up as an accountant. Let's teach you how to do the books. Let's teach you what to not sign. And I find that can be valuable for a founder, but it has to be the right founder. I would say it's probably a bad idea to go in there with, okay, I'm paying a lot of money to get in front of investors when you're mentally not ready for doing that.
Yes. So there's so many accelerators, incubators out there, right? Of course, there's the big ones, the Y Combinator, Techstars. The smaller ones like Generator 8. There's ones like New Chip Accelerator. There's 2 or 3 in Seattle. Like, is it really worthwhile for an entrepreneur to go to accelerators? I mean, it has to be some kind of, like, obviously you get the Techstars, the Y Combinator thing is a big thing, right? But if you go to like 5 incubators, what are you really doing, right? Are you just being a student all the time? Like when is the break on that, you think?
I think if you go to more than one incubator, you're doing it wrong. Wait, let me say going to more than one incubator with the same startup. Incubators are great. As I said, they put you in contact with the VCs, they put you in contact with the people who have the knowledge in the industry, and really not the knowledge about the technology, but the kind of the technical operations knowledge. Okay, what's up to date in HR? What can I ask in hiring? What do I have to keep in mind now with new cybersecurity regulations before I do an IPO? And these kind of things, that's where I think these accelerators can help you, especially if you've either never done it before or if you've been out of the scene for quite a while. I would say if you go to one accelerator, finish that, go to the next one, then hopefully the accelerators will say no as well. But it's then, sorry, you don't have a product. You have too much time on your hand.
Great point. But let's switch to cybersecurity now. So your company you're with now, they mainly deal with cybersecurity, right?
Sorry?
So the company you're working with now, they mainly deal with cybersecurity, right?
We deal with identity management, which is comes the core. For anyone who doesn't know it, it's for you to log in and use the same username, password for your corporate accounts everywhere. For admins, if I say that, they're like, yeah, there's so much more behind it. From getting the right user accounts wherever they need to making sure if someone retires, they get deactivated everywhere and there's not an account which is there 10 years later and you wonder, why are we paying still a license for it? And why did he just download our whole database of clients?
Yeah. And so I do a lot with like data security also.
Data security, certifications. We normally then help the clients. Okay, they put our product in and what are the best use cases, what to keep in mind, how to extend it, how to bring in the old tech into it.
So you might not be able to answer this, but what's your take on this TikTok stuff going on? Like on one hand, you people are like, I don't care if Chinese have our data. I mean, Facebook could have it too. What's going on? And then, of course, I don't know if it's true or not, but then you hear people saying, well, actually, all the TikTok US data is stored at Oracle in Austin, Texas. Like, is this really a threat? What's your take on it?
I think it's the unknown, which might be a threat. And the other thing is that somehow TikTok has gone onto so many devices where it shouldn't be. I mean, if the Texas government feels the need to make a rule that you can't have TikTok on a state-issued phone, then yes, we probably should talk about the security and oversharing in general on social media. Whether to ban it, I mean, the rules they have in place and the play they have with Oracle kind of protects us, but it's also goodwill between annual checkups. So if they push a new version out tomorrow or the day after the check, then for the next checkup we push the fixed version out. So
yeah, they're definitely. One thing I never understood is like you hear all the time, the U.S. government bans TikTok on government advice. I've always been like, why is any social media on a government advice, right? Like, why is Facebook? Why is it only just? I get that, like ban it from government advice, right? That's one thing to understand, right?
It's either you're in social media and in marketing, then you should have it. But if you're
if you're a security guard at some kind of nuclear plant, why the hell you got TikTok on your government phone?
Yeah. Or if you're, I don't know, the Secret Service guy walking after the president, why do you need that on the phone? Yes.
That's one thing I don't understand, right? Yeah, I'm sure. Did you watch any of those congressional hearings?
Sometimes when they really.
Yeah, for the one TikTok, it was insane, right? Like this one senator from North Carolina asked that. So CEO is Mr. Chu has seen Mr. Chu, does TikTok access my Wi-Fi if I go on TikTok at home? And of course he got blasted on social media. Like, if I drink water, will I still be thirsty? Or if I breathe, will I live? Because some of these people don't know the basics. Like,
Yes, and considering that they should have enough staff to find like
Exactly.
really relevant questions.
Yeah, like, hey, 21 year intern, will I look stupid ask this question? Sir, for the love of God, do not ask this. You know, and one lady like was calling it tic tac, or she said, does tic tac track my GSP? Like, what the hell? What's GPS? I mean, it was insane, right?
And I mean, if it was correct, it would be a very interesting question, but then you have someone asking the question in a way that you say, maybe let's move on to the next person. And then these questions get kind of railroaded over because someone who didn't know what they were talking about asked them wrongly.
Yeah, of course, some people like, they're gonna ban TikTok when we're gonna lose our living or whatever. And then somebody made a good point. Of course, I've seen this on TikTok, of course. This lady say, calm down, no one's gonna cancel TikTok. It's just community hearing. They say, think about it. If we ban TikTok in the United States, they might ban Apple from making the phones in China, right? And that's not gonna happen, right?
I don't know. I mean, we banned Huawei from selling
That's
5G
true.
equipment.
Yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah, you're right.
We've banned some of the networking suppliers. I'm trying to remember which one from selling to US government. So it's not that we haven't done it before. And likewise in the other direction, you can't sell chip technology to China.
Yeah.
So on some points, it might make sense, especially if you think about networking technology and backends, and honestly, how the NSA put chips into that as well.
Yeah, I know, right? I mean, what the Patriot Act like pretty much got rid of privacy, in my opinion. And I'm probably wrong, of course, but and then you always hear these things, Mark Zuckerberg's paid $20 million to lobbyists, get rid of TikTok, So is that true or not? I have no idea, right? There these conspiracy theories.
Yeah, normally people don't pay lobbyists just for one thing.
Oh yeah, that's true.
That's kind of, we're back at sales. You need to build a connection over a long time. And I would wager they probably have someone in there who says, okay, this is a disadvantage of TikTok. This is why Facebook is different. But I would doubt that they paid someone just 20 million just for getting rid of TikTok. It's just the risk of someone doing a drive-by on Facebook or Instagram.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, yeah, it's a complicated thing, right? I know a lot of people like millions of followers, they make good money on there. There's 5 million businesses, but I was watching some podcast had a good point. Like, is it we're just mad because China did something better than us, right? Like, how is it that China built this great social media platform and we didn't?
Yeah, I think it's a combination of both. That China built it and scaled it really quickly compared to the earlier social medias. But I think there's also a point in that, yes, it is a security threat, especially if combined with oversharing or having the device at the wrong place. But whether banning it will solve it, or whether then they just find creative ways to use Facebook's APIs.
Yeah.
I mean, we saw it for the 2016 elections, how the campaigns could access Facebook's APIs. We don't need Chinese to do spying.
No, we don't. So let me get your opinion on this. Let's suppose like TikTok does get banned in the United States. And I don't think many people know how to do this. I could be wrong. But do you think people would just like access to a different IP or use a different VPN, like use a VPN for like Vancouver, Canada, or Tokyo, Japan? Of course, I don't know how many people know how to do that, but
I would think
or you think they'll be able to ban doing it like that too?
No, I think we ban it, and then we have TikTok a week later. Different company, of course, a different CEO, and 3 more layers of corporations in between the real owners.
Yeah.
And that way, everyone can use an interface which maybe is just blue instead of black and white.
Yeah. From your perspective, and of course, not answering like giving a first answer or anything, but from your perspective and your experience, do you think this is really a national security concern?
I think the combination of who owns the data, who can do the changes, and who uses it, yes, whether it's so much of concern that we need to ban the technology instead of banning the people who shouldn't use it from using it, which admittedly should be a lot easier than banning the technology.
Yeah, I agree. So next question, like I know people will say, well, Facebook does the same thing, like Facebook, Twitter, all these places, they take our data and sell it to Chinese anyway, or sell it to Russian anyway. So what's the difference?
Sure, they sell enough data as well. I think it's the difference what people put on them. As you said, it's a national security plant who makes like it's a nuclear power plant who makes a 3-minute TikTok about how his hairstyling products work, and then in the background you have the reactor schematics.
Yeah, that's not a good thing. Yeah, I think everyone can agree that that's probably pretty bad.
I think that the kind of the difference between Instagram and TikTok, which is I think the close competitors, that Instagram people normally think about how can I make most of the money out of it. So they wouldn't do it there because they might get fired or if no one really is interested in that background. Versus TikTok is, okay, how do I get the most likes and how do I get it out right now? Which then gets people to do really stupid stuff.
That's very true. So tell us more about your company.
As I said, we do identity management, username, password, or for the tech guys, how to get whatever defines the user, so name, last name, email addresses, username, and password to the different systems. So if we schedule a podcast or if you work in HR, that's the HR system, has hopefully the right name in there that pushes it to us. We create like the email address, we create the username and then push that first back to the HR system so people can log in there, but also to the mail server and to CRM systems that people can either log in without a password, use single sign-on, or at least use the same password and username everywhere.
And how many people work in the company?
Around 150.
150. And are there the Seattle area across the United States?
Worldwide.
Worldwide,
So
okay.
our biggest market is still Germany.
Okay, all right. And who would be like your perfect customer?
The typical customer is someone who has like higher security requirements, so medical, government, schools, universities, so anything is more regulated. Or recently we went into the movie industry because apparently they're quite concerned about people stealing their latest movies and have some very interesting dates now in LA with special effects companies.
That's interesting.
Yeah, I would have not thought that they have requirements which very much mirror the Department of Defense.
So this is something I know very little about, but how do you think all this AI and ChatGPT is going to affect your company? Will give you better opportunities because everyone's going to be concerned about?
We've seen hacks coming in, people either doing scam messages which automate them, which are so good that you can't really differentiate them. So a couple of, I think 2 weeks ago, and now it sounds like a long time, but the thing has only been out for like, 4 weeks? But yeah, 2 weeks ago, we had someone who got like scam messages which reference data which executive had posted on social media. It used the language of the industry and then just asked, okay, can you please reset my password? And then some other asked, can you please wire me $500 for the hotel? Somehow my credit card got magnetized. And so that way we see it. And then we get like, okay, how do we prevent someone from resetting the password for getting such a good email? And the other thing is combined with the data breaches we've seen, these kind of language models are really good at finding hidden patterns in passwords. So if you not use the same password, but use like the same base of a password and add something and then use the same ending everywhere, then language models are really good at finding, okay, how will my password look for this company or for this service? Then if you have 3-4 data breaches, which we honestly have in a week, probably, you can buy the passwords and email addresses, and then you know, okay, what does Kevin use to shop at his favorite online store? Or consequently, what does he use for logging into his corporate email account?
So data breaches, are like, somewhere with this. So I think there's a lot of data breaches out there, right? It was dangerous. I think it was probably more dangerous. You can tell me if I'm right or wrong. I have to guess there's how many companies get a data breach and they don't tell anyone, right? But like, well, I got, my company had a data breach. I'm not gonna tell anyone because that's make it look bad, right? And they take the risk of like someone find out later on there's a data breach, but
It's very risky both in the terms of the punishments and in terms of the consequences you can get. And I mean, we've now seen what the SEC doing rules for public companies that they have to disclose it in like 4 days, I think. And if you ignore that, you can get delisted on the stock exchange, which
that's pretty big.
it's pretty big, but it's also our legal system of punitive damages. If you have a data breach, there's a good chance tomorrow your data will be for sale on the black market. So better disclose it and make sure people change their password, people are aware of them, to get hit by additional punitive damages or pay additional money to your customers because they needed longer to react to it.
And you say the black market, you're talking about like the dark web, right?
Dark web, yes.
Dark web. Can you talk about that real fast? Like, what is the dark web? Is it really like dangerous a place you shouldn't go there, or is like?
I think people have the wrong ideas that the dark web is people sitting in a dark room seeing green text go over the terminal window. It's simply websites which are on a different DNS server. So DNS is kind of like your old school phone book. You look up plumber and it tells you, okay, that's a plumber and that's the phone number. And if you change the phone book, you get it in a different city. And the same as for the dark web, you change your phone book, you get different websites. And there are websites on there which are dangerous to go on. There are websites on there where you really want to make sure no one can follow you back, because there are people who will follow you back just to get a kick out of it. But there's also a lot of websites in there who have people who just don't want to pay for a DNS name. So DNS name is that thing which you enter into your browser and gets you to wherever you want to go. So it's really depends on where you want to go there.
Does anyone like control the dark web, or is just a bunch of people on there doing whatever they want to?
No, it's in contrast to the rather structured, fail-safe way. It's much more disorganized, and sometimes you even have to switch services to get to different parts of the dark web. So it's in no way closely related to our normal internet, where you know, okay, if I'm on page 2 of Google, I might as well not exist.
Yeah, exactly. So this is like really bad example, right? So I'm guessing like if you Google, I want to buy weapons on the regular web, you probably get nothing. But I'm guessing you put I want to buy weapons on the dark web, you'll probably get stuff come up.
You get nothing.
No, okay.
So things like that work as well as the other networking stuff via referral.
Okay.
So you start off with on the points where you might be able to buy ammunition, and then, okay, I trust you. You can now go into the higher membership tier and buy then more, and then.
Yeah, I was wrong. I always thought you on the dark web you could go like type in I want to buy drugs and stuff will come up, or you want to do illegal activity. So I have that totally wrong. Then
it's much more based on reputation, much more on trust than anything which you see in a movie where like, oh, this looks almost like other online shopping platform. I just pull my AK into the, oh, maybe some grenades, and then here's a credit card for checkout.
Okay, that's good to know. Then that's good to know. So what's the future hold for your company?
I think it will very much depends on where we go with technology, but given that people are still very much not in love with logging into different services, I think we'll continue what we do with identity management. And maybe we see, right now, we see more of a chance of the cloud consolidation, which is happening right now, that people are more thoughtful of what they want to put on the cloud. Well, actually not what they want to put on the cloud, but how much they want to spend on the cloud. And that, of course, gives new chances, but also we need to make sure that we take the chances until we have the markets that need our services and not go running after smoke signals.
Yeah. And how do you find your customers? You have like a marketing plan or like refer or like word of mouth or like?
All of that and traditional cold calling.
Okay.
So a lot of it, it's still, okay, you get the first 2 or 3 by word to mouth. And so someone finds us, someone likes it. And then you realize, okay, that's a market which might be interesting. And then we go cold calling or go to industry events.
So when you cold call someone, are you calling the business owner, someone in IT, like who you cold
Normally
call?
the CTO.
CTO, okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
go up, top down, and go more from the business side than from the technology side.
Okay. And then I'm guessing you have like a good number of competitors out on the market.
There's a big one in Redmond.
Redmond, yeah, that's true. Yeah. So how do you like differentiate yourself from these other companies? How do you make, you could call calling where the kids be like, hey, you should come to us because XYZ.
In many cases, it's the 1 or 2 features which we realize, which the early customers have in common, which then you go and, okay, we made that, we saved them a bunch of money, or we made sure that their compliance is now a lot easier. And that normally then gives the next client the chance to think about it. Because everyone likes to think they're unique, but honestly, businesses in the same industry are very much alike. So if you have identified a need somewhere, it's normally easy to say, okay, that's what we need to go after.
So how do you monetize a company sounds it's like a month to month, like an annual fee? How does that work?
Normally annual contracts for support. So they pay us for support, and some do services, but most just the support, and then kind of the assurance that there is someone to call if anything goes wrong.
Now, can they contact you like 24/7 or how's that work?
Depends on the contract.
Okay. So obviously the more money they pay, the more response you are.
Yes.
Stuff. Okay.
Well, it's also, it really is a kind of the price question for them, and really the need question. I mean, if you have a small business with 50 employees and everyone is home at 5 p.m., you don't want to pay us for having someone on standby at 3 a.m.
Yeah.
On the other hand, if you run a hospital system round the clock, there's basically no way around having someone on call 24/7. So it's really kind of everything. What you need determines what people will buy, and if you don't offer what they need, or at least have a reasonable explanation why not, they start haggling, which I will never call you at 4 a.m, so why should I pay for it?
Yeah. So what's actually this? Man, I got brain lock. So here it was for your company. Like I'm a big every customer, not a good customer, right? Suppose you're like trying to get a customer. What does the customer have to do where you're like, okay, this person not worth the hassle. No matter how much money this customer pays me, it's not gonna be worth it. How do you go through that process?
The great thing about an open source company is not just that everyone can go into our source code, edit it, change it, but it's also that people can just download our product for free. So if we realize, okay, that guy is never going to pay us money, that guy is just trying to either push himself up for some reason or trying to get quotes for some ridiculous comparison, and we just can tell them, okay, download the product, and once you're ready to commit to services, let us know.
Okay. Well, people don't know. Can you explain what open source code is?
Open source simply is how the source code is delivered. So every technology or every software product gets written somewhere, and depending on how you do it, it looks more or less like the language we speak, and that again gets translated into something the computer can interpret, which is really at some point just a bunch of ones and zeros, but at the point where most software is, it's very complex, it's a very simple language. It's like more like, and this, store there. So open source just means it's a very initial code which a human wrote that anyone can take, anyone can modify, anyone can publish on their own, and can do whatever they want with it.
So why be an open source company? What's the benefits of doing that?
First of all, you tap into a huge ecosystem of other open source companies who want to work with you, where you can make changes, where you can make modifications and really give away their code. So you don't have to develop the whole product from the base. On the other hand, it's also a trust issue that if we're not around, if something happens to our company, customers can simply go take the code and run it, and or have someone else continue to develop it. And that makes then all the difference in them saying, okay, if a plane tomorrow crashes into Redmond, what happens to Microsoft versus our product will be like, okay, it will still be around. It might not be called Univention, but it will work the same way.
How do y'all like recruit and retain your developers? Like, what's the process for that? 'Cause the developers, like, I think they're like like developers, you need them, but then like something it's so hard to find them. Places to see how, like, like places as a startup founder, you want to find developers for your startup, but then you can't afford to pay them Amazon money, of course, and then some developers got a boot camp, like they're not as good as they think they are. So how do you balance all that, find the right talent for your company?
For our company, I think we are slowly reaching the mid-sized business. So we have the interesting combination of paying well enough, and then the open source is also a draw for developers. They want to, people who worked beforehand in open source software, worked in Linux. For them, it's often a draw to go to a company who still works there and who still has that experience. Conversely, also for college students, for them, it's often a draw. Okay, I worked with that stuff because I'm fresh out of college and I didn't want to pay mainstream for Office, or because I like the idea of free software, as in free beer, or the freedom for both of them. And that kind of gives a draw for developers. I think for the startups I'm working with, it's a lot harder because you need to find someone who fits in your team, which is, it's easier if you have like 60 people in the room and then have smaller groups, somewhat divided. Because if it doesn't fit there, you might be able to move someone around and not lose the investment in hiring. Versus if you're a 3-people team and someone doesn't fit in, you only can say, okay, I'm cutting my losses. Sorry. For the payment, if people are happy to work in a startup, they normally accept a lot of stocks in contrast to lots of cash that Amazon might offer, and then hope for that big IPO, which gets them into the billionaire level.
Yeah. So I know it seems like junior developers are having a really hard time finding jobs right now across the United States, right? What would be your advice to a junior developer? They just are either out of college, Korte can't kiss me there. I mean, they have some stuff on GitHub, not much. They don't have a job yet, and they keep on getting rejected. They can't even get an interview, right? What's your advice to them?
I think that 2 advice. First of all, publish stuff, do stuff in code. Don't sit there, just send out 5 resumes a day and think, okay, I'm coding more when I'm hired somewhere. It's just, and I unfortunately see that with myself, my coding skills are getting slower and slower the less I'm doing of it. And that's for everyone the same. You can only learn what you practice. So keep on doing projects, keep on developing small things, or contribute to open source software. The other thing is, have a look at what ChatGPT can go, and maybe a query architect, which is now the great word which is going around for junior developers, is something which might be interesting, but people are looking for right now. So even in a place where people don't look, the right specialization can get you on.
So I don't know if you're hiring developers now or not, but suppose you're hiring developers now. What would a new developer have to do to get, like your attention, right, so to speak, right? We just apply online, or what can you do, like, make yourself stand apart from other people?
So for us, of course, contributing to something we use, which is the open source point, really. But for anyone who's looking more into the wider range, look into what's currently in vogue and try to write small programs on it and publish them. And if you look at ChatGPT's API, there isn't too much which uses it. So if you write, okay, here's my resume automation software, or something like that, or here's the software which helps me send out my cover letter, which you just read. If you put that at the bottom of your email, that will certainly catch attention.
And what tech stack do you code with? What's your coding language?
Python mostly.
Python
and Bash.
And how long have you known that language? You've known for a while, or
Since college.
in college? So it's like that's your go-to.
Yes, I was lucky enough to have my go-to languages in college were Python and C++.
Okay.
And then I went into, well, by now it would be a project management intervention. Back then was kind of anything touching a customer except for sales. And they luckily used Python, so I could sharpen that into the customer side developments. But
is there another coding language that you want to learn, or you just want to stick with Python?
I don't think I really want to learn any right now. It's more, if I see something which catches my interest, it's easy to get like the concepts over, especially if it's something object oriented. And that makes it, I think, much more important that I kind of remember the concepts and every once in a while get to use them versus, oh, I need to learn Go or Rust now to be up to date. But that's also the difference, someone who's not anymore a junior developer versus for a junior developer where it might make a difference that you learn the coding language for the job you're applying to.
Talk about this. So like, I mean, I'm not a coder, I'm not a developer, but it seemed like, if you're a developer, whatever your language, Python, Ruby, Rails, it's always getting updated, right? Something just changed. Like, how do you make sure as a developer, you stay up to date in your skills? Because I'm sure most companies don't pay you to do it, right? You just have to do it on your own time, right? So what's your recommendation on that?
I think a lot of companies actually pay you to stay up to date, to do some self-study and especially given, and you said you're running a business, you know how expensive it is to hire someone versus to retain them. So anyone who says, okay, we don't have a chance to develop our skills, that would be a major red flag in my opinion. The other thing is, especially for coders, hopefully companies use code sanitizers. So if you have a big change in the language, that will spit out, okay, I can't accept your request because it's not up to date or it's not using the latest, greatest features. And that way you kind of are forced to study to get away with the error.
Okay, makes sense. So moving on to something next. So this, I just want to know for myself, multi-factor authorization, does that really increase security, or is this something else to do? Does that really increase security that much, the multi-factor authorization?
Whether it's multi-factor, it's that increases security, you might be questioning it correctly, because if you use something like a token, or the YubiKey is the famous one, plug that into your computer, you don't really need the password to make it more secure. But from a user perspective, people have the idea that they need to enter a password for it to be secure, even if they use a token. So yes, in that sense, from a psychology perspective, you need multi-factor authentication versus just a token or so. Whether it makes a difference then depends on what is used and what your attack profile is. So for your banking account, where you might get an SMS to log in, that's probably sufficient. If I work in nuclear technology, or if I'm developing software for the military, someone really might target me specifically. So in that case, I can go online, or I can go to Best Buy and buy the stuff to catch any SMS going around the whole block for $19. So then it depends on what I'm using. So a token is okay. An SMS is probably not a good thing for any of the high-risk environments.
From your point of view, what do most average Americans get wrong about data security, IT security, and all kind of stuff?
Reusing passwords. What, 40% or something? So the 30 to 40%, depending on which study you look at, reuse their banking password for social media, reuse their work password for online shopping or social media.
To be honest, I would thought it'd be more higher than that, to be honest with you.
Maybe more don't want to admit it. It's probably the reason is that that the banking password and your work password are the two passwords you think about. I would wager if I'm starting asking whether they use their YouTube password for Facebook, you'll easily get into the 80% range.
Yeah.
But it's just my work and my money are still a bit more valuable than anything else, including the kids' photos I'm posting on Facebook for most people.
So what is the you're a treasurer for Jacobs University Bremen Foundation of America? What is that?
It's plainly said the alumni association for the alumni in the US. So I went to a private university in Bremen, and we at some point had the luck to get an endowment here. So I'm doing the management of the endowment, the selection of the scholarship, making sure the money doesn't just disappear somewhere.
So next question. We've talked about mentoring earlier, but can you tell us who your mentors are? Like who mentors you?
Naturally, the CEO of my company, Peter Ganton. Then I'm actually a startup investor involved in a startup called A-Plan Coaching, and for a while had a mentor from them. Funnily enough, also called Peter. And for a long time, then of course, during Toastmasters, there's a high focus on mentoring new members to get them to actually overcome that fear of speaking. That are the three, I think, which had the biggest impact on me. Apart from the one guy, Eric, who had me kickbox in a suit one time, which that's probably the most memorable thing. So I went to his thing and like, I'm in front of a kickboxing studio. Are you sure that's where we want to meet? Like, yeah, come in. Oh, that was the guy who mentored me for sales in the very beginning when I was afraid of picking up the phone. And so he had me do the kickboxing in the suit where I'm normally calling people in.
That's definitely different. And you already answered this question some before, but next part of the question is who are you mentoring?
Startup mostly. So the two startups from through NewChip, which is one is a fashion startup, very interesting because they somehow got categorized as tech startup, and said like, no, you go after people who want to invest in fashion, please. I don't know how they got it. And the other one's hardcore cybersecurity with software built of materials and code signing, all these kind of things. And then, of course, giving back at Toastmasters is the other thing. I'm mentoring one of my fellow Toastmasters there. And of course, at the university, also like to go back, make sure that people learn about, okay, what's the real world and not just, okay, this is how the classroom looks like.
So what do you see as the future of cybersecurity?
I think it will very much depend on who's fast in developing, whether it's quantum technology or blockchains. Because anything we have now at blockchain, and I hate that people reduce it to cryptocurrency and NFTs when there's so much more interesting uses, but both of them are very vulnerable to quantum computing and being really able to quickly get prime numbers, just one of the, or to calculate the prime numbers used in certain mathematical operations. So I think that will be one of the races we see, quantum computing versus blockchains, and then of course the effect that has. Then on the other hand, what is still the problem is that cybersecurity training really is not good, I would say. It's very technical. It's very driven on shame. Oh, you clicked on a link from an email we sent you. Now you go to another training versus, okay, here are the people who did well. And I think that's also one of the reasons why cybersecurity training gets forgotten so often, and why people don't remember that you don't click on a link if someone sent you an email. It's just that the way we teach it, it's very much focused on the technology. It's not focused on the psychology behind it, because it makes a huge difference if your boss sends you an email. I really urgently need my password reset. I'm in the plane and I can't get to the presentation, versus the typical scam message we see. Oh, here are my 5 favorite spelling mistakes. Send me $100 and I sent you a chest of gold.
Exactly. I know there's like all these cybersecurity startups, cybersecurity companies, some big, some small. Do you think they're actually like how, if you have a business on how do you pick the right one for you, right? Like it makes any sense. Like I know it's like real complicated question and answer.
I think the right one very much depends on which doesn't make it more difficult for the end user. Because anything which makes it life hard for end users is something which will be forgotten, whether it's waiting for the SMS and you're thinking, when is it coming? Maybe I should deactivate that stuff. And then naturally, on the other hand, also anything which makes life harder for administrators, especially in a time where everyone says we are firing people, but you still can't really get good people. You really don't want to overload them with stuff which doesn't have any use. So I think that's the two big criteria, which are both kind of user friendliness compared to, okay, the latest and greatest in technology.
So what's some new tech out there that excites you, whether it be blockchain or ChatGPT or AI, VR, what's some newer tech that's coming or over here that really excites you?
I said quantum computing is very much one of the things. And then, yes, ChatGPT, of course, AI is very interesting also in terms of how people use it, what the use cases will be, and what the impact will be on people, on their positions. Whether it's call center chat agents and what their business future really is there. But also in terms of how people on a psychological level react with the knowledge. Okay, I don't know whether I'm talking to a real person or whether I'm talking to an AI with a very nice voice.
Yeah, I know that there's some pictures in a magazine or internet that like have pictures like all these famous people. And like you could tell them, but you couldn't tell them, right? Like if you just glanced at it, like you'll be fooled, right? But you like stared at like little, okay, that's a little too good, right?
I think the problem is then that a little too good is hard to define in the world where you have hundreds of Snapchat filters and marketing agencies using Photoshop.
Yeah,
so
that's a good point.
If you look at this picture and say that almost looks too good, is it AI or is it just someone
I didn't think about that.
doing too much in the softener brush in Photoshop?
Yeah. And I listen to this podcast on Twitch called This Week in This Week in Technology. I couldn't have gotten remember guys it. And it played a recording. Someone did an AI recording of Steve Jobs doing a speech in 2020, right? Like the annual speech was like, code was hard for Apple. Like, man, this sounded just like Steve Jobs, but it was just a little off, right? If you really, you could tell just a little bit, but you just like listen to glance, like, yeah, Steve Jobs was still alive in 2020.
Yeah, but you only know that because you probably have heard a speech of Steve Jobs.
Mm-hmm.
If you haven't heard a speech of, I don't know, Kamala Harris and suddenly have her going off on radio, then you might have, well, you probably have heard the name, she's the vice president.
Yeah.
But if you don't have a voice imprint somewhere in your mind, you then might think, okay, that sounds like her. Or if you have just even worse, if you have a very weak voice imprint of her, then you think, okay, they really mimics a distinct speaking style well, that must be her.
So from your point of view, should most average people be like excited about AI and ChatGPT, scared of it? What's your take on that?
It is, I think, the same with lots of technology. It depends on where you are and what the risk factors is. And there was an interesting, I think, from French university too, where you can put in your job title and it figures out whether you're at risk from AI or at risk from robots. And robot, of course, doesn't mean C-3PO from Star Wars, but like the more advanced version of the Roomba who goes through the office to clean stuff, the cleaning lady. And I think it will very much depend on how much you still learn and how much you grow with it. I think the best analogy I heard say a lawyer, ChatGPT won't replace lawyers. Lawyers with ChatGPT will replace lawyers without it.
Okay. Nice. So how do you take care of yourself?
After a long time, sports is one of the things.
What like sports do you do?
Normally free weights,
Okay.
boxing and running are the three things, apart from sailing, but sailing is like
Mhm.
very weather dependent and not really the thing you can do every day. And the other thing is I'm dressed up. I've started doing that, I think on a mentor's advice as well, to differentiate the guy who is raiding the fridge and who's doing the food versus the guy who's in the home office and working. So that's the other thing, really setting these little cues, which then trigger behaviors instead of having to think about, oh no, I'm not going to the fridge. I'm just right now the guy who's not going to the fridge. And then once I'm the guy who's cooking, I then wear different clothes and the cooking apron, and then naturally open the fridge.
Nice. So what's a normal day for you? Like, is like you wake up at 4 a.m, go to the gym, like go to bed at 10 o'clock. What's a normal day?
Normally it's 4:45. Waking up, doing some stretches, getting dressed, then doing till around 6:30, 6:45 some creative work.
So you say you like doing creative work, like first thing in the morning.
Yep. And then afterwards it's normally the meetings with my colleagues in Europe till 7:30. Then there is a block which is blocked in every calendar from 7:30 to 9:30, which is breakfast.
That's your time, like time to focus on yourself and be with the family.
Time for me to eat, time to bring my kids to school.
That's good.
And then it's, normally then 9:30 to up 11ish, it's marketing, sales. So the stuff where you're in contact with people. Then 11 to 12, I'm normally so tired from it that I do workout.
So you've been up since 4 a.m. So you work out at lunchtime?
11 to 12, and then have lunch afterwards. And then afterwards do either administrative work or stuff which doesn't require me to talk anymore.
And about how many hours of sleep you get per day?
So I normally am like 7 hours.
That's your sweet spot to 7 hours.
7 hours, 25 minutes is my sweet spot.
And you said your company has people all across the world, right?
Yep.
So how do you manage? And so does the company run on Seattle time?
No, it's normally each office. Sorry, not even each office. Each person runs on their own time.
Okay.
We try to find like overlaps.
Okay. So with people across the world, like, you might do it at morning. It's me at 8 a.m, but maybe like 2 a.m. somewhere else, right? So how do you like negotiate that kind of stuff?
Yeah, not normally. It's, I think, the big place for me is normally I communicate with Bremen and then sometimes with our Australian guys and partners. So that normally gives 2 distinct meetings, one in the morning, one in the afternoon if needed.
And are y'all a big meeting company?
We try to get rid of the big meetings, the one-on-ones, feedback meetings of 3 or 4 people. It's just, you get a lot more done. Then, yes, we still have the town halls, all hands meetings, but that's then set with a set agenda. Everyone knows what's going to be said. You can get a summary afterwards, and we don't have the big meetings where who wants to say something now? Kind of the meeting to have a meeting.
Man, in the Army, U.S. Army, man, it's so bad about the U.S. Army. We do a meeting to get ready for the meeting, get it for a meeting. It's like such a waste of time. And like, yeah, that's one good thing I didn't like. But one thing I did not like about the military, like the meeting for the meeting, it was horrible.
Yeah, so I prefer the meetings where you send out the agenda, send the prep points before, and then discuss the prep points. I think Jeff Bezos was also a big advocate of that versus I'm not a fan of the brainstorming meetings where let's get all in the room and think of what's a good idea.
Yeah, see, I hated those meetings. I'm an introvert, right? And by the time I know what to say, they're going like 4 ideas down. So like, yeah, I'm not a big fan of brainstorming.
Yes, it's also, there are few companies who get it right. And I admire the Onion, who have like a daily brainstorming meetings where the goal is to discard at least 400 good ideas. I'm like, I could never sit in that meeting.
Yeah.
And it probably depends on them that you have first a good person to facilitate it, but also people who quickly get used to the idea of, okay, just throw it out. And then we see whether it's a good idea to discard or a good idea to follow up on.
Yeah. So back to data security real fast. I just remember this. Sandra, you have to have things called GDPR, something like that.
GPG keys?
Yeah. What's it? GDPR?
Oh, the European Data Protection Act? Yes.
Do you think something like that will come to the United States, or are we already pretty much doing that already?
Well, we do it differently. In Europe, they do it, okay, that's what you have to do. Otherwise, you can't sell software, can't sell products, can't make money. Here we do it, you better do it, otherwise my lawyer will get money out of you. Mm-hmm. Which one is better? I don't know. It depends on whether you value your data at $25 or not. $25 and a year of credit monitoring, I should say. But if we look at California as the biggest state, they already have that, and that kind of drives then everyone else, because there's little point in making one set of websites for California and one set of everyone who doesn't require it. On the other hand, it makes it, of course, hard for startups to then think about, oh, wait, we got our first customers in California, or we're actively trying to get people in the Bay Area. Now we have to take care of that. So it might be interesting to get a more national cybersecurity requirements on there. And almost the most funny thing about it, if you look in cybersecurity and look at the standards and recommendations the federal government publishes, they're normally ahead of everyone else and really high quality, but it's just their recommendations, their suggestions. So no one really thinks about them until they're forced to do it.
Is there a state, I guess it's gonna be California. Is there a state that has like really good cybersecurity laws that everyone has to be following? That does it better than any other state?
I think California is the furthest ahead, and especially in terms of data privacy. Yeah, otherwise, I think the best recommendations are still then SEC requirements for disclosure, which only hit public companies. That's not for private companies, but at least something you can work after.
So let's say it's Monday morning, you wake up and you have like 10 things to do. What do you do to make sure you do things 1 and 2 versus going number 9 and 10?
Oh, the calendar is full Friday evening.
Okay.
So I'm normally.
So you're a big calendar guy?
I'm not a big to-do list guy. I'm like to estimate, okay, the 15 minutes blocks or 5 minutes blocks I have and fill them up. Because otherwise there will be stuff that manages to creep up and fill up my my time. I'm also someone really proponent of turning off any chat, checking emails at regular intervals, not.
Okay. You're not checking your phone every 5 minutes. You check it a certain hour in the day. Okay.
Yeah.
I need to start doing that.
It's otherwise there's Twitter and LinkedIn, which can really, oh, someone else liked it, I should respond to it. And
I mean, one time I didn't have access to all my emails one day for some reason. And there was like, I got like 250 emails, but like 200 of them like this crap, right? I only had actually 50 emails that I need to respond to. Like I was like, that's a good eye opener for me, right? You get so much crap in there, you know?
I've recently read an article about better out of office messages, and the guy recommended, oh, if you're coming back from the vacation, just delete all the emails. If it's important, someone will resend it. Just tell them in the out of office.
I saw a good one too, where somebody put it was somebody working at Amazon. He posted something on Core or something, like his out of office was like, I'm on vacation now with my wife. If one of the other 200,000 people at Amazon can answer this question, include these people here, then here's my wife's email. Contact her. If she says I can reply to you, I can reply to you. Like, man, that's like perfect right there. Like if other 200,000 people or whatever at Amazon to include these 6 people on the phone can answer your question, here's my wife's email. Get permission from her, then you can contact me, right? I said, man, that's perfect.
Yeah, unfortunately, I'm dealing with too many recruiters and too many candidates to do that.
Yeah.
But it certainly is a good point that normally every company has someone else who can answer that. And yes, there are some person-to-person communications which you don't want to have someone take care of, but 90% of our business email is just follow-ups and follow-throughs, so that someone else can take care of.
So on your emails, how much emails like people trying to sell you stuff, like financial advisors, coaches, like this crap,
I don't
like
really,
people that you would never buy anything from.
Given that I'm doing that myself, cold messaging, cold calling, I shouldn't hack on them. But I think the ones who I never look at is like 6 paragraphs, someone I've never heard either on LinkedIn or per email.
Well, the ones I get all the time right now is like, I'll get these like, we want to promote your podcast in Bangladesh, right? Or like, we want to increase your LinkedIn, whatever. And then I have like way more followers than them, or like you said, I want to be a personal coach or personal advisor. And they see this like 20 line, single line, paragraph of stuff, right?
Yeah, I think LinkedIn has like, if you can't say it in 300 characters, don't say it.
Yeah.
And I think that's a perfect recommendation, and which admittedly also
it's hard to do. What I think Mark Twain said, I would have sent you a shorter email, but it's too hard to do. So I sent you this long one or something like that.
Yeah. Except for he probably sent a letter because he didn't have emails.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Can you tell us like any tools you use to make your life better, whether it be for business or personal, or any like productivity tools that you like to use?
Generally, I'm a huge fan of automation, whether it's Node-RED for both the business reports and the home automation. So anything which doesn't have me copy data manually from somewhere to someone else. Because something people don't realize about the glamorous life of running a company is how much data there is you have to put in different reports and send to different people. And yeah, as much as that, getting rid of it. Otherwise, simple calendar is always a great thing, and being really up to date on using that.
Yeah. I joked with someone one time that my title should be Jason Cadman, CEO/founder/data entry clerk.
Absolutely. It's data entry or manual data processing. And it's one of the big problems that it's not, oh, here, do that, but it's like the creep. We suddenly decide to do one report or have one more dashboard or change the dashboard, and now the data needs to be entered differently.
Yeah, and the data, automation is fine, but the data has to be manually entered somewhere, right?
Yeah, but it's often the kind of the laziness of doing it, of automating it, which is more the hindrance. You say like, okay, it takes 30 seconds every morning to do it. Or writing automation would take an hour, so I'd rather do the 30 seconds and then be annoyed the whole day about having to copy 30 seconds of data in the morning. And that's, again, I think one of the things, how much psychology is really into how we act and how we behave versus the rational being who would say, okay, it's 30 seconds.
Yeah, that's true. Now, are you looking to hire people for your own department anytime soon?
We are. Sales,
okay. So the same question for development people. Like, suppose someone was out there want to do sales and marketing, how would they catch your attention and like convince you like there was a chance?
Reach out, probably for a position which is not advertised.
That's a great advice right there.
Especially for salespeople, if you just send me a CV and a cover letter, which you just went through replacing the name of the company. Sorry, I might forgive that for an introvert developer. I'm not forgiving that if you're a sales guy.
So let me ask you this. So I know, I think there's some people are like, they want the standard black and white resume, no creativity. Other people like the creative, like they like the color in the resume, like the video in the resume. What's your take on that? Or is this, are you like, whatever you send me that portrays you the best?
So the best one is who gets the resume scanner to throw error messages, especially if you're a developer, if you find a way that they don't sanitize data, so that makes it stand out. Otherwise, I think there's a mixture between it needs to be easily to process for me as a person, but it also should show you. So the creativity should be in the text and in what you put on there versus the pink unicorn.
Okay. Yeah, that's a bit much. Yeah, like I like creativity, but yeah, unicorns and all pink, formatting. Yeah, that's too much,
Yeah, or if you have 7 tables and the formatting aligns differently in each section, then at some point my brain just gets overloaded by it, and I'm like, okay, I'm just putting them aside to never be picked up again. I tell myself I'm looking later at it, but there'll be then either a different resume to look at, or I forget about it.
Exactly. So back to you and your family, y'all been there since 2013. Is Seattle like pretty much home for y'all now? Is the plan like eventually go back and move in Germany and live in Germany once you're done with everything? Or any idea yet?
There's always a chance to go somewhere else, but I think home has a lot to do with the people and the roots and the community put around. So I would say it has much more to do with our neighbors and their house and being in Seattle.
Yeah, people don't realize that, right? Like, I live in DuPont, right? Our 2 neighbors, they've been with like 10 years. They're great neighbors, right? I can't imagine moving, but like neighbors have a lot to do with it. That's a good point.
Yes. And we moved from a townhouse in very much near Microsoft campus to, now outside where you actually see bears in the backyard. And I didn't realize how much it makes a difference to actually know your neighbors, to have them live there for years on end and not have a new one move in every other week.
And they don't bother you, don't bother them, They might throw a party once in a while, but it's not like every day, might exchange Christmas presents. Yeah.
And if they throw a party, you always...
you're invited.
Yeah. Even if you're not invited, you
invite yourself.
You invite yourself.
Yeah.
Bring the 3 beers over that you'll drink, and everyone's happy that you're there.
Exactly. So is there anything that I haven't asked you yet you want to talk about, or anything else you want to talk about?
Oh, I think you covered a lot of ground.
Yeah, thanks. So can you share us your social media so people can reach out to you?
I think Dominik Korte on LinkedIn is the easiest way to find me, and probably also the best way. Otherwise, korte.co is my webpage, and that has all the cryptic links to social media.
Do you have so you said LinkedIn, is that your favorite social media?
That's my favorite.
That's the one you're usually using on? Okay. So before you get off, so for sales, do you have any sales platform you like to use, like HubSpot, Close.com, or anything like that? Or do you have some internal tools you use?
We're using it's called Odoo now.
Odoo, I haven't heard of them.
That's Open ERP.
Okay.
Was beforehand. So it's an open source ERP platform, which we use for sales. Otherwise, I'm quite recently, especially with the film guys, LinkedIn Sales Navigator.
Yeah, I've used that before. I don't know. I like it and I don't like it, like for example, so with my startup, we try to do HR community 49 a few people. So I do the building research, small business owners, 49 a few people doing the numbers. And like half the time it's accurate. Other half, like you go and check it. Like, man, this company actually have 97 people or 3,000 people, right? To me, the data's like way off, at least from my experience.
It's great in some branches. So we've tried to use it for medical and then cancels the subscription because it was like, no, that's like not there. But yeah, not now for the film guys. They're on there. They're technology guys. They use it. So
another thing I don't like about, like, suppose you're on LinkedIn Sales Navigator, and suppose you send like 100 messages out to someone else on LinkedIn Sales Navigator, right? And then like suppose you canceled it, right? And that person like replies to you like a week later, "Hey Jason, I just saw this message. Hey, how can I help you?" But you can't see who it sent it to because it's all like deleted. All the info is deleted, right?
Yeah, that's
have your Microsoft, right? Keep it somewhere in the cloud so I can come back and get it back, because people all the time like delete it, bring it back,
Yeah, it's one of the shortcomings. You really have to think of, okay, when's our campaign over? When do we not need these messages again? And I mean, you can download them, but that doesn't help you.
No, it doesn't. No.
Align it with whoever sent a reply 3 months later because they were on a 3-month sabbatical.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. And how many people actually even know if they got a LinkedIn message, a Sales Navigator message, right? Like most people don't go on LinkedIn like other people do,
Yeah, it's most people don't go there daily. So that's the other thing. When we are back at sales, you can't take it personal if someone doesn't reply within a week on email as well. It's like people just answer them in batches sometimes.
Yeah, another criticism like on LinkedIn, like I know for most people the email they have on LinkedIn is like not accurate, right? They might have the college email, some email from 3 or 4 years ago. Because no one updates their LinkedIn email, right?
I don't know. I don't think that I don't think we have ever used the emails from there for anything, because
Yeah.
it's in most cases the private email.
Yeah.
So very few people have the
Their work
corporate email. And if they have the corporate email, it's then normally the assistants you get.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. On LinkedIn, like, I have a love-hate relationship. Like, I love it because like stuff it does for you, but like there's nothing better out there, right? At least not that I know, right? And probably won't be for a long time.
It's a great platform for network, for
Oh yeah, definitely.
keeping follow up on
And
connections.
it's a great network for like stalking people, right? I'm gonna meet John Brown tomorrow. Let me stalk him real fast,
I find Facebook is still the better stalking platform, especially now that they integrate Instagram and everything.
Yeah, that's true.
So if you really want to stalk people, I think LinkedIn has more curated content.
Yeah, it does. Yeah. So when you hire your salespeople, you need like certain skills or like characteristics or values you look for them, work in them.
I think follow up is still the big things for any salesperson. Openness, a certain technology affinity, and understanding that at least in our space, people commit for 5 years, so sales cycle can easily be 6 months. I think that's one of the big things, which makes it interesting to get people in who sold SAP, because they realize, oh, how short a sales cycle is. It's bad if you get someone in who sold digital ads beforehand, where you buy Google AdWords app optimization for a month and are out after a month. So it's more the relationship building, which we need.
From your point of view, how often should someone follow up? Like 4 times, 5 times, or they just follow up until they get a no or yes?
Depends on how the introduction is and how the thing is. So I'm sometimes also mind to say, don't follow up on long messages.
Mm-hmm.
So if you really need to send a long message with an invite, don't send a follow-up, because it's just either ignored or nothing. For the short message, I would say do one follow-up, 2 weeks later, no matter whether it's email or LinkedIn or whatever you're using for the campaign. And then at the end of the campaign, do another one, which, okay, by the way, this is what we reached. This is who we got new on. That's the result. And if you want to talk, let me know. Then you don't overload it. The worst, I think, is the ones who send like, here are 12 paragraphs to begin with. And then next day, did you get my message?
Did you understand everything I put in there?
Yes.
Do you understand all the acronyms and the details and all that mess?
Yeah. And sorry, I haven't gone further than the first paragraph before someone else sent me a 12 pair. So I think it very much depends on your approach and your personality. Because we have people in the team who get great results with sending just one message and never doing follow-ups on cold calls. I should say, if there's a follow-up agreement, there's no excuse for not doing a follow-up. But we also have people who do like 3-4 messages or even 3-4 calls for the ones who don't really hate doing messages and really like calling instead before they get somewhere.
Yes. And you might not be able to answer the question, but for your company and maybe just for yourself personally, do you think it's for salespeople to get paid strictly commission, strictly salary, some kind of combination, like a sliding scale? What do you think the best thing for that is?
I find that very hard, because on the one hand, we have a very strong relationship component in there, which makes commissions a very hard thing to do, because then you're 6 months in before you see your first commission paycheck. On the other hand, it's, especially here in the US, the one thing which salespeople like to do, because then their salary is really tied to their results. So in the end, it needs to be a combination of both, I think. And it needs also to be able to account for situations where they can't do anything. So if I have someone selling door to door and COVID restrictions kick in,
yeah, that's tough.
That's tough. And I think that's then the point where I say, okay, you really can't do just one or the other. It needs to be a combination of both.
All right. So I ask you one more time before we get out of here. Anything else you want to talk about?
No, I think we covered everything
Okay.
and more than I expected.
Yes, yes, yes. Hey, Kevin, thanks for your time today. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
And to our listeners, thanks for your time as well. Remember to be great every day.